Det här är Anna Åbergs podcast. Anna lär ut hur man bygger företag på webben. Hon drivs av att sprida godhjärtade entreprenörers budskap över hela världen. Ladda ner i mobilen eller läsplattan och lyssna när du vill. Låt dig inspireras på promenaden, joggingturen, när du väntar på barnens träning eller på bussen. Varsågod, här är Anna Åbergs podcast.
Jag sitter på en restaurang just nu i Las Palmas vid Las Canteras, den långa härliga beachen i Las Palmas. Och idag är det soligt väder, vilket är ovanligt i Las Palmas. För det mesta så är det molnigt här. Kanske hör du vågor i bakgrunden, kanske hör du ljud ifrån restaurangen som jag sitter på. Det du har framför dig nu är att få lyssna till Calvin Corelli. Calvin, han sprider kärlek genom programvara över internet. Och i den här intervjun så snackar jag och Calvin om att göra affärer och andlighet, hur det hör ihop. Det var ett väldigt, väldigt speciellt samtal. Calvin, han är grundare av Simplero.com som jag använder för både att bygga mina kurser online och för affiliate och för att skicka ut automatiserade e-brev. Och du får höra Calvins historia i den här podcasten som entreprenör och hans tankar om hur affärer och andlighet hänger samman. Och jag delar också en del om hur andligheten påverkar mig. Calvin, han anser att våra företag är laddade med det andliga budskap, den andliga energi som vi som grundare bär på. Och att våra tjänster och produkter sprider alltså den andligheten vi bär på runt om i världen. För Calvin så är det kärlek. Han älskar verkligen sina kunder och det känner man som kund. Vi pratar om att dela vår andliga sida i nyhetsbrev och på andra sätt i verksamheten. Och Calvin, han delar hur negativa händelser i företagandet också är andliga lärdomar. En cool grej tycker jag är att Calvin har för det mesta bara 3 möten bokade i veckan. Han gillar att vara väldigt spontan och han satsar mycket tid på att lära sig att blanda drinkar av alla saker man kan lära sig i världen. Att sjunga och att göra stand-up comedy. Calvin berättar om sin kamp i olika samarbeten han hade innan han hittade rätt business för honom att driva. Och du får också tips på böcker att läsa om andlighet och business. Mycket nöje. I'm here together with Calvin Corelli, the founder of Simplero.
Mm-hmm.
You are very welcome. And the first time I heard about you and Simplero was in Costa Rica, where I met a Danish girl called Pernille Norgård. And she spoke highly of you and of Simplero. I was at the time using Kajabi app, but looked into Simplero and I am so impressed. So please tell us a little bit about who you are and what Simplero is.
Hi, yeah, absolutely. Thank you. It's great to be here. So I'm just fascinated by how the world works these days. You're Swedish, I'm Danish. You heard about it from another Dane in Costa Rica. Correct me if I'm wrong, that's in Central America, right?
Yes.
And then you are now in Spain and I'm in New York. So
it's a small world.
There's the world for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
When did you hear about it in Costa Rica? What time was that?
It's in February, this February.
In February. Okay, yeah. Because like a year and a half ago, I lived in India. So.
Oh, yeah. You did.
I did. Yes. So we're all over the place. Well, yeah. I'm an entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur my whole life, basically. I have not. The only job I ever had was for about 2 years in the States working for a startup. But other than that, I'm like born into that. I'm a programmer. Always been a programmer since I could spell, essentially. Both my parents were programmers, which was pretty radical for its time. And my mom even started a software company. So it's kind of like computers and software is in my blood, is in my DNA. And also like the whole spiritual, holistic side of life is something that I grew up with very much as well. From my mom, from my aunt, from my cousin. So that was a big part of it. And yeah, so now I created Simplera, which is a software platform for coaches and consultants and teachers of various kinds. And we tend to attract a lot of personal transformation or spiritual teachers, and business and things like that. I don't know what to say anymore.
And it's very, very simple to use. You have done a great job with this platform, and it's all inclusive with the marketing and the what do you say in English? The systems to pay. It's very well planned.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I love doing it. I created it because I needed it for my own business because I got started teaching. I had this like big breakthrough epiphany in 2008 where I was like, oh God, spirituality and like being in the moment and aligning with that life force within and just like aligning with our dharma or our purpose. And it's just like, that's the way to do entrepreneurship. And it's the way to solve all the challenges that we're facing on this planet and all that. So that kind of like landed as one big lump inside of me, and or in a good way, one package. And I just aligned my whole life around that. And so I started teaching spirituality and marketing to entrepreneurs, and then needed software, and then wrote the software, and then other people started to ask, hey, can I use your software? And then it slowly got to be a business. And that's where we're at now. So we're small, we're 3 people, but we're having a blast serving some of the most amazing people out there that we know of.
And you're so fast, the support is so fast. You ask questions and you have answers directly, and you're only 3 people?
Yeah. Well, we're only actually 2 that do the support part, or directly answers questions. That's me and Christina in Copenhagen, and then there's Swanand in India.
Incredible. And I love your newsletters because you mix the
help desk support.
Huh?
Oh, sorry. It seems like we're breaking up a little bit. Okay. What I was saying is that when you're contacting support, it's because you're in the middle of something and you're kind of blocked, you're stuck, and we want to get you flowing, get you going, I guess, again, as quickly as possible if we can.
And that is what happens. and that is what you want as a customer. Yeah. I love your newsletters and that you mix your spiritual side and talking about Simplera and things that are happening on the internet. I find it kind of hard to put together business and spirituality. Could you say something about how you do it all together?
Yeah, well, for me, it's like everything in my life is about ultimately my spiritual growth. Everything is in support of that, and so that includes my business. The way I look at it, there's many ways to look at it, but to me, it's like everything that happens in my life is a reflection of something in my consciousness. So whenever something happens in my business that's not, what I would like, I look at how I created that through my consciousness, either consciously or unconsciously, and I look what I need to learn from this and what I need to transform or shift inside of me to change it. And I also do the outward action, but I think if we're only acting out in the world without doing the inner shift that needs to happen, then we end up in struggle. And at the same time, I also see the product and the business as kind of having its own individual soul apart from mine. Yes. Yeah. And so when I'm working on that business, I see it as my job to be in service of that, like to feel into what does this product want to become, what does this business want to become, and how can I serve it in a way that also serves me and my purpose.
And you are very open about your spiritual side. You use
Yeah.
tarot cards, and you meditate, and you talk about it.
Yeah.
And I find it fascinating. I can really connect with that, but I don't have
Thank
the
you.
courage to do the same.
I
Maybe I will.
I didn't always.
No, tell me. But when did you start?
Well, so I grew up with like a very spiritually connected, especially my aunt, but also my mom, and then a dad who would have none of it. Like, and so my mom would kind of be reading some books, but then hiding them so my dad wouldn't see it. And so it was kind of this like the spirituality was like came from a very natural place within me, but I also saw a model that you can't show it to the world, and also. Like whenever things got tough, it was always kind of my dad's side that was very, emotions is something he heard that other people had in theory, kind of person. But his way would always win in the end when there was any kind of conflict. So it kind of taught me that spirituality is kind of nice and fine for chit chat, but it doesn't matter when the shit hits the fan. And so and it's also part of just my nature to be. Kind of fighting my own spirituality. So it's one of my lifelong struggles is to be able to own it and just share it and be with it. And I mean, the reason you don't share it, I mean, at least that was for me. The reason I didn't share it was that I was myself unsure of it, right? And so that's so when you go share it, then people reflect that back to you, and you get this like critical view. But once you own it yourself, that tends to go away.
Have you met anything from your audience that they connect more with you when you share your spirituality, or that they tend to not be interested, or any reaction?
Well, I mean, very much that they really enjoy it when I share. There are also people who, I mean, there will be the occasional reaction. It's been a while since I got any of that, actually. But there will be the occasional reaction from people who are like, I got one a few months ago that was like, you keep writing that you love me, but I really don't believe that you love me. And I'm like, and I was like, I forget if I did write this or just thought it in my head. I was like, now I love you even more. And it was true. But it is this, I mean, I really do think of my audience and everybody, like my customers and everybody I know, even though the people I don't know, but I get to know most of my customers in some way. I think of them with love always, and gratitude, a lot of gratitude. And so, I mean, whenever there is people that get back at you, it's always about them, right? It's never about you. Or, I mean, and yet, it is in the sense that they're just reflecting your own resistance, something in you, and so like especially if it kind of triggers you, then you know that it's something within you that's being triggered, and if not, it's just hey, send them love and move on, and it's totally fine if people don't like it. They can unsubscribe and leave. That's okay too.
Yeah, and as a customer, you really feel that you love your customers. I can feel that as a customer.
Thank you.
Definitely.
I'm glad to hear that. Yeah.
So yeah.
I have this mantra of spreading love through software. Because I really wanted, once I kind of saw that like this elevation in consciousness, if you will, is the key to the evolution of the planet. It's the key to solving all the crises that we see in the world. And it has to come through business, right? Because business is where, again, the rubber meets the road, and we get to work every day, and we transact, and we create things, and we exchange value. So it has to be in business. So once I saw that, I was like, I gotta, like, what do I do? Oh, well, the way to do it is to, sit in like one-on-one sessions with a lot of people, so I can help them awaken or open up or whatever. And I was like, and that never really spoke to me, but it felt like something I had to do, sort of. And then at some point I realized, hey, I don't have to do it that way. I can actually spread love through the software by infusing. I believe that you can infuse, that products get infused with the consciousness and the energy of the creator. Just like a great meal prepared with love will taste better than if it's prepared without love. and it gets the consciousness of the chef. This is my dog playing around with if you hear something in the background. Anyway, and so if I am conscious about doing what I can, infuse my software with the highest consciousness that I can, it's going to affect people in some positive way. Plus, a lot of my customers, or if not all of my customers, are out there helping other people grow, and that transforms their consciousness. So I can get a little bit of leverage that way.
I'm so glad you're saying this because I feel the same way with my business, and you're building a program and a platform, and I do other stuff. But with the web, with the internet, we can do it in a very large scale.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So it is. I agree totally. It is. It's a revolution going on, a love revolution on the internet.
For sure, yeah. And it's increasingly like really taking place in corporations as well. It's like things are really shifting fast these days. It's so great to see.
It is.
Yeah.
So tell me, what does a usual day for you look like? What do you do?
I honestly don't know if there's much of a usual day. I have my calendar is almost, there's nothing in it pretty much. Like in a week, I'll maybe have like 3 appointments. And nice. I like it that way. I really like it that way. I hate having like fixed meetings and things in my calendar. I like to just be able to be spontaneous. And so it really depends. Some days I will, not do anything or just go for a walk around the city with my wife and my dog. Or if there is some issue that I need to fix, I'll go in and fix it. And I really enjoy kind of, especially if there's a customer that has some request and it maybe involves me adding some feature or doing something like that. I really enjoy it if I can kind of do it on the spot and just get it done if it's something that fits with the vision. And, so maybe I'll do that. Yeah.
But how does that work with giving support? Do you give support via your cell phone or how does it work?
No, well, I have Christina who's doing most of the support. So it's only the things that she can't. And Swanan, my developer, is like supporting that with any kind of development effort that needs to happen. So they're pretty much taking care of things. And I'm pretty much free to do whatever I want all the time. And that's really important for me because like that's the way I'm most happy and productive is to be free to do whatever I feel called to do that day. So I don't plan a whole lot ahead either. I have a strong vision for where I want the product and the business to go and where I think it wants to go. And so that gives me the direction, but day to day, I don't like plan out my days very much. So I'll check in every morning and just see what's going on, and if there's something that needs my attention, I'll pay attention. And also just every once in a while, just check in and see what's going on. But apart from that, yeah, I mean these days, I'm doing a lot of other things. I'm in this like creative explosion phase. So I'm singing, I'm learning how to make cocktails and bartend, and I'm doing stand-up comedy, and I'm doing all these other things, and I'm giving interviews. I'm like out teaching, and I think really the next phase for me in my evolution is to be way more visible on stage. And I used to think that was just kind of in a teacher speaker role, but now I'm like I think it's got to be involve singing and performing in some way. And I still don't know exactly what that's going to look like, but it's really exciting.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I think I think really it's in support. To me, a lot of people are like, well, then what about the software business? And are you going to like use a different pseudonym or something? For me, it's all one thing. Like the me being out there visible as some kind of, like me as a musician, as a comedian, and as a spiritual teacher, it's all part of the spiritual teacher. Everything is part of the spirituality for me, and the software too. So it's all aligned. It's all one piece. And the more I get out there and is aligned with that purpose of mine to be on stage, the better the software is going to do. The more people are going to hear about it, and the more it's going to grow. So,
What or who inspires you most right now?
Oh God, I was going to say I do.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a permitted answer to that question. Honestly, I've always had these idols like Richard Branson or Sting or I forget right now, but like I've always had a lot of idols, and lately I'm like, um, I feel like unhinging myself from them and just being like really discovering who I am and taking my place on the stage. And I think that's what I need to do. And like all of these, how like I've for the longest time I've been searching for this blog that would serve me just that right balance of spirituality and business and life in general and stuff. And then until you get to that point where like, hell, it seems like nobody's gonna write it. Maybe I'm gonna have to be the one to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what's the worst you have been through regarding your entrepreneurship, your company?
Well, the first many years, it was just it was such a struggle. I started a software consulting firm, so basically doing programming for hire, and I had with the maximum we were up. Usually we're just like 3 or 4 people, but the maximum we were up to were 13 people, and it was a struggle because it was never really what I wanted to do. I always wanted to be in a product business, or not a selling time business, because I'm not good at a margin game. And so, and then I tried different product businesses while I was doing that with other people.
When is this? How long time ago?
Well, I started my consulting firm in the beginning of 2002.
Right.
And then I'm going to say 4 or 5, I met this woman who was in Silicon Valley. She was pretty much a hotshot. She was a published author of user interface design books. And I was like, she's going to be my ticket out of here, So, and she had this idea for a product that was kind of the combination of a couple of things I'd done before. And seemed like she had the connections and the market reach and all that stuff. So I was like, sure, I'll be the technical co-founder, and let's do this. And it was a complete disaster. She was in California, I was in Copenhagen, so we were 9 time zones apart, and we just couldn't, like, personality wise, we couldn't make it work. And then after that, I got approached by a couple of people in Denmark who had an idea for another web service, and they seemed to have it all figured out. They had the kind of the business experience and distribution and other things. I was like, this is going to make me rich. And so I jumped on that, and it turned out that it wasn't working at all. Customers wouldn't have the product. And that's when I started to get really serious about coaching and learning more about myself. And took a coach education, and so at this point, I remember like walking around my apartment, just feeling like the worst entrepreneur ever, and just complete like disillusion. Hey, Yasmin, I need you to stop. Okay, complete disillusion, just like so low self-worth. Can you hold 1 second?
Yeah, sure.
I'm just gonna mute and talk to my dog for a second.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. So it was a deep crisis, and it continued for a while. And I had my second child, and we bought a house, and like all this time I never wanted to be in Denmark. That's another kind of backstory. But we lived over here for a couple of years, and then moved back, and the plan was to live in Denmark for a couple of years and then move back to the States. But my wife kind of kept dragging her feet without canceling the plan. It was just like, yeah, in a little bit, and then 9 years later. So it's like super, super miserable. And like, I just realized, it seemed like nothing was working. But that, like, at the depth of that crisis were also when I finally sat down and asked myself what I'm here to do with my life. And so that was also the opening that has been shaping everything I've done ever since.
But what happened then?
Well, what happened was that I was at a point where all the contracts, I was, the second startup there had failed, and I needed money, just like, but everything, all the freelance jobs that I had and that I kind of had out for bids were not coming through. I'd been doing work for Greenpeace International for 6 years, and had like a contract with them for pretty good money to maintain their intranet that we built for them and just like add features and do tweaks and stuff. And they called me one morning saying, "Hey, we've outsourced your job to India."
Oh.
And then all the other projects that I had going on, they just like in the most amazing fashion all imploded. Like they were underway, and then there was this huge argument, and I was thrown by the wayside, or like all kinds of weird things happened. And so I took that as a sign from the universe that maybe now is the time to actually ask myself what I wanted, because I'd never asked that question. I'd never asked that question. And in the beginning, I didn't even know that it was a relevant question to ask, right? I was like, my job here is just to figure out a way to be really successful. That's what I want. I mean, there's nothing else that I want. To have a lot of money, that's what I want. And so and I was scared of even looking, because what if there was nothing, or what if I found that it was something that I didn't like or something. So I was like, finally I sat down and I was like, let me draw up some questions, and like, what did I love to do in college? What kind of people do I like to be around? Like, what are the situations where I felt most energized? All those kinds of things. And then that's when I didn't even get through all those questions. That's when it just landed at me. Dude, the spiritual side, which is sort of my mom, and the entrepreneurial side, which is sort of my dad, and like really not switching from one to the other, not being exclusively one or the, but like really getting them to be integrated, to be one whole thing. And I thought I was the only person in the world who thought this at this point. And I remember starting to look for books on Amazon. I always bought tons of books on Amazon. Had them shipped over the Atlantic, even when I was in Denmark. I'd always buy them from Amazon USA, not from UK. Anyway, side story. But anyway, and there's nothing. And it seemed like nobody had like thought of this that I could find. And then later on, of course, I discovered. And when I talked to people in Denmark about it, they were like, "This guy has lost his mind." Like nobody got it. Nobody got it. And it wasn't until much later that I discovered, like I got in touch with Gay Hendricks, and it turns out he wrote this book called Corporate Mystics years and years ago. There's a conscious capitalism movement over here with John Mackey, the founder of Whole Foods, as one of the leading forces, and talked to the president of Trader Joe's, which is another grocery chain over here, who said he'd consider it, Trader Joe's his spiritual gymnasium for the 17 years that he was there. So, I mean, there's a lot of people who did think along these lines, but it's only way more recently, like in the past 2 years maybe, that people are starting to talk about this more openly in business settings.
What was the book you said? I would like to read it.
Oh, Gay Hendricks? It's called Corporate Mystics.
Corporate Mystics. And the author?
Gay Hendricks.
Gay Hendricks.
Gay Hendricks, yeah. Gay. Gay Hendricks.
Ah, perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So that was the worst times in your entrepreneurship. The happiest moment.
The happiest moment. I think there are many. One definite, like, easy to pinpoint and defining moment was at the end of 2012, December 2012. So I started Simplero back in, really kind of the first pieces got started back in the fall of 2008, and then rewrote a couple times. So the current version is from about April 2009. And then it wasn't until a year and a half later, September of 2010, that I actually started charging anyone for using it. And then about 2 years later, December 2012, it finally reached a monthly revenue that I knew I could live off of this and not have to do anything else. Because like the whole time otherwise, I was financing developing this by doing courses and other things myself. And so it's completely self-funded, bootstrapped, and through that. And so what happened was that we were trying to, my new wife and I, we tried to move to the US and try to get a visa, and we were not successful at that. And so we were like, okay, we need to do something else. And so we ended up in India because she was into Ashtanga yoga and wanted to practice that at the source. And so I was like, sure, why not? And so we went to India together to practice yoga, and it's an online business, so you can take care of it from anywhere. And so our cost of living were suddenly very low. And so it got to that point where I realized, holy shit, if we just don't increase our spending dramatically, I never have to, we don't have to do anything to make money. And that was a great moment, because then what I realized was that I still really want to do this product. And what I realized was the two things that motivate me are to realize the vision that I have for what this product can become, and learn and spread the word about spiritual entrepreneurship. And Simplera is my kind of playground. It's where I try things out and learn. It's my spiritual gymnasium, as Doc Ross said of Trader Joe's.
Wow. So what's your vision for the world? If you look into the future, what do you see will happen in the future?
Oh, it's definitely, I really believe that we're all one universal global consciousness. And so we're individuated souls, individuated facets of this. And we have our own kind of reason for existing. Like, I really believe that we chose to incarnate for a reason. But more than that, like, there is this inner life force that is, the thing that makes us alive, literally. But also our sexuality, our creativity, our passion, our fire, all those things. And the more that we're aligned with that, the more, the happier, the more productive, the more loving, the better everything, basically, right? And so, and the more that I am, the more people are more aligned with their life force, with who they really are inside in this moment, the more they're going to be productive and happy and fulfilled and loving. And so, the more we can help transform this, make this shift happen. And the way that we do that primarily is doing it ourselves and just beaming out from that place. That's the key that's going to solve, climate change, inequality, you name it, resource depletion, whatnot. Every challenge that we face is going to be solved through this. Because when you're coming from that place, you're not going to intentionally hurt other people or hurt the planet or this whole zero-sum game of trying to win over at the expense of someone else just falls away. It doesn't mean you'd never make mistakes or like ego doesn't still pop up, but an ego is good and we need it and all that. But it will move towards that place, and I think that's how we lift, everything in this world. So that's my vision for the world, is that everybody does that.
I have a similar experience by traveling very, very fast and a lot, to travel around the world fast and a lot. Then everything kinds of melt together. So my experience is that I'm a piece. I'm a piece of the humanity. I'm one piece of a total sum of humanity, and it's an incredible feeling to feel it and know it.
Yeah. How does that manifest? How do you feel that?
Uh, how do I feel that? Uh, it's in my heart that I feel it, and I feel that I'm safe and secure wherever I am. Even though I remember walking in a street in Hong Kong, and to me, Hong Kong and China is very, very different from the rest of the world.
Mm.
But still feeling like I'm a part of this.
Mm.
Yeah, feeling connected wherever I am. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
You bring your source with you. You bring life with you.
Yeah, and it's kind of a religious experience, but it's not. But it is.
Yeah. A spiritual experience.
Spiritual, yeah, a spiritual experience. Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
But isn't because it feels very very normal. It feels like what it should be.
Well, that's the point, right? Like
Yeah.
spiritual isn't some like the spiritual is the normal,
Uh-huh.
and
Yeah.
spiritual doesn't mean that we like one of my passions right now is cocktails. Like just because you're spiritual doesn't have to mean that you sit in a circle and lotus pose and
No.
meditate and drink green tea all day, right?
No.
It's spirit and like the whole thing about a meditation practice is all fine. It's like that's a big like in the States right now, like yoga and meditation are kind of the big things.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody talks about how many years they've meditated and how they meditate every day. I'm like, that doesn't really interest me too much. I mean, I love meditation as one of many tools in my tool belt
Mm.
that I can use when appropriate. But for me, life is one big meditation.
Mm-hmm.
This conversation is a meditation. Like, anything that happens, that's the goal for me.
I was talking about this. I did a tour in Sweden in August and talked on many places. And this was in the south of Sweden. And a guy asked me. He said first that the experience I was talking about was like being high on drugs.
Mm-hmm.
And he asked me, do you feel it all the time, or do you need to, do something to get that high? And I actually feel it all the time. Since I experienced it,
Mm-hmm.
it's like a switch have turned on,
Mm-hmm.
and it's always there, more or less.
Yeah, more or
Yeah,
less, exactly. Foreground
yeah,
and background, right? So
yes,
sometimes it's in the
yes.
foreground, sometimes it goes to the background, but it doesn't go away.
Mm,
You can
no,
always access it. And sometimes you forget to access it, right?
yeah,
Or
yeah.
at least for me, but it's always there.
And when you have felt it, you don't want to harm another person, and you don't want to harm your environment, because you're one with it.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, exactly.
It's good to talk about that. I have one last question before we wrap this up.
Sure.
If you would start your business again, what advice would you give to yourself?
That's a good question. I it's tricky because at some level, when I look back, I see how everything unfolded perfectly, even though it didn't feel like it at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, sure, my life and my business could have been in a very different place today than it is, both like worse and better, or so-called worse and so-called the better. But I'm really grateful for how everything is. So I mean, but the key, I think, the big thing that I needed to learn in this whole process was to learn to accept, appreciate, and even love myself.
Mm.
That was the big, big, difficult thing for me. It wasn't until 2.5 years ago that I, for the first time ever, like had an experience of actual love for myself,
Mm.
and that was a big, big moment. And then, but that it wasn't kind of done with that. That was just breaking that door open. but then to actually get to a place where I could see myself in a loving light was a much longer process. But to me, that's the thing that underlies everything. Because if that's not there, then nothing that you do outwardly is really going to have the effect that it needs to have, or that it could have. Right? It's going to be a struggle because you're always resisting, and your energy is just working against everything that you really desire and want. But then, like, how do you give that as an advice? I mean, other than being like, I think one key for me was that instead of setting the bar and actually loving myself, just being willing to possibly love myself, or even being willing for not be knowing how to love myself. You know, being willing to love myself for not knowing how to love myself, being willing to love myself for not loving myself, like just any kind of little crack in that door. And willingness, I find, is a good place to start.
Thank you so much. This has been a very, very interesting conversation.
Thank you, Anna.
Yes.
It's been a pleasure.
And I don't know when I will send it. I guess in maybe 4 or 5 weeks. But I let you know when it's going in there. And I also need a photo of you. Do you have anything you could send me, or I could
Absolutely.
From Facebook or?
Yeah, no, I'll send it right away.
Yeah, perfect.
Yep.
Thank you for being you.
Thank you.
Okay.
And thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Du har lyssnat till Anna Åbergs podcast. För att vara säker på att få alla poddar, skriv din mejladress i formuläret på annaaberg.se/podcast.